The very good news is that Baldur's Gate 3 on the PlayStation 5 supports the HDR system level calibration on the PlayStation 5. The bad news is it's kinda broken and you might end up with a picture like this. The minute when I saw the start screen in Baldur's Gate, I knew there's something completely wrong. This at the moment is HDR, but as you can see, it is just completely wrong. And this reminded me a lot of the issue what we had back then with Jedi, and the fix was actually quite simple. What you have to do is you go to your settings menu, you go to screen and video, and then you look for the HDR, adjust HDR settings. And all what you have to do is you follow the instruction on the first two screens, and then on the third screen make sure that the setting is not to the lowest point as you can see right now. Make sure you tick one box up that you actually hardly or barely can see the sun. Then you close this, start up the game, and then the terrible HDR black level crush is fixed and it will look like this. Thanks God there's a very easy fix to get rid of this HDR black level crush, and it really reminds me a lot of Jedi back then because it was exactly the same. And don't ask me how this actually can happen in the first place without... Anyway, don't let me start on quality control. Anyway, the problem what I'm having right now is that it will be fixed hopefully very, very soon, and then most likely the HDR will change in the game as well, because we're using the HDR system level calibration. And what I found right now is, compared to the PC version, the PlayStation 5 version with the exact same settings as the PC version in my PC recommended settings video has slightly more elevated black levels, okay? PlayStation 5 version, slightly more elevated black levels compared to the PC version, because we actually raising in the PlayStation 5 HDR system level calibration menu. That's a great word. But anyway, we raising actually the HDR black level raise. We raising actually the black level point already a little bit by, increasing this by one tick or click. So that's of course a problem. So again, just a problem right now, because as soon as this is fixed, I'm very, very sure that HDR is on the same grade level as the PC version. Okay, so now let's talk about my recommended settings for Baldur's Gate 3 on the PlayStation 5. And if you have watched my video about the PC version, then it is actually more or less the same. Despite the fact that we have this bug at the moment where the HDR system level calibration on the PlayStation 5 is causing some issues, it is really the same in terms of settings. So when you start the game for the very first time, you actually start with this settings here. So I'm not quite sure again what was the brightness setting here, but I think it was around 100 when you start the game for the very first time, and contrast was set to 1.0. And as I already mentioned in the PC version, I don't like those settings at all. First of all, the whole picture is a little bit too dark. That's the brightness setting. And then in terms of elevated black levels, and we can fix this with the contrast settings, it's a little bit too much. And we can test this again here on this very nice scene. And I just realized when I read a lot of comments on my PC recommended video what Spinster actually means. But anyway, I think this is a great option, actually a great picture actually to check for the HDR black level raise. And what you can see at the moment, and if you focus on the histogram, then you can see that the game actually reaches 0 nits or perfect HDR black level or perfect black level on certain points like the user interface, as we have seen this in many other games. But unfortunately the rest, and you can see this on the moving parts, when I'm moving my character, you can see that there is a gap to the actually line, okay, to the bottom. So what you can do is, and this is my recommendation, first of all, change contrast to 1.25, because this is, in my opinion, the best compromise to have almost no HDR black level raise. As you can see right now, we are very close to the bottom, and I would actually even say it is absolutely or almost perfect right now. So the fact that we actually had to manipulate the HDR system level calibration on the PlayStation 5 gives us a little bit of HDR black level raise or raised blacks in the game. But again, as soon this is fixed, this issue, I'm very sure in terms of the HDR black level raise, the PlayStation 5 version will be on the same level as the PC version. Okay, so let's talk about the brightness setting, and I told you already that I was not quite happy with the standard factory settings because it looks a little bit dull in my opinion. So please keep in mind that I'm using HDRG on my TV at the moment. The TV is the LG G2, and of course if you now go to and use dynamic tone mapping on, it would look differently of course. But this recommendation is actually for HDRG because I found this works pretty well. But what I found is just increase the brightness setting to at least 200 or even higher if you want. But keep in mind that if you go much higher, you actually also have more elevated black levels at some point. So I found our value between 200 and 250 just perfect. Okay, my friends, so what do I think about Baldur's Gate 3 in general on the PlayStation 5? So first of all, HDR implementation still on a very great level despite the fact that we have this bug. But again, this will be fixed very, very soon. I'm very sure about that. In general, HDR, in general, the game is for me, yeah, game of the year, to be very honest. So also on the PlayStation 5. And I'm working on a performance video compared to my PC because I like to know actually how this game performs in general. So spoiler alert, we have a 30 FPS and a 60 FPS mode, and spoiler alert, no, it's not fixed 60 FPS all the time. But again, let's wait for my performance video because at the moment I'm having a lot of fun, and it really doesn't matter if you play on a PC or the PlayStation 5, because even in 30 FPS, and yes, that's from me, even in 30 FPS, a game like this is actually okay because it's not a fast game, okay? It's not a first-person shooter. There's no problem actually to play this in 30 FPS. But of course, 120 FPS or up to 120 FPS on my PC looks of course better. Anyway, in terms of the general HDR implementation, I'm actually quite happy because it still looks great. As you can see, we have great specular highlights. We have slightly black level raise even after my recommended settings. There is a little bit of black level raise, but it's on such a great level actually that there is not much to complain about in my opinion. Okay, so what I would recommend is, if you are a fan of games like that, that's a must buy, not just in terms of gameplay, also in terms of visuals and also in terms of HDR. Thank you very much, and I see you guys later. Bye.